Malcolm David Nugara. I was born on the 11th of November 1951 in a place in Sri Lanka called Anuradhapura. I was born in Anuradhapura, which is the old capital of Sri Lanka, and it's more than 1500 years old, and even today they still have the records from 1500 years ago about how their civil administration was carried on.
The city of Kings.
Yeah, Anuradhapura translated into English is the city of kings, and that's where Buddhism in Sri Lanka took off. And not far from our house was the boa tree where Buddha planted, which is about 1500 years old. My mother was born in India and my father was born in Sri Lanka. They are of Burgher descent, which is the descendants of the Europeans who settled in Sri Lanka, and in my mother's case from the East Indian Company. My father's name was Henry Arthur Nugara and my mother's name was Ruby Enid Nugara, and her maiden name was Dickman. She was of English and Irish ancestry. Okay, there's 11 of them. It's Kathleen, Yolan, Nelia, Heather, Shireen and Coral, 7 sisters, and Inez, and she's still alive, and so is Kathleen. Kathleen's 96 and Inez is 94. And I've got 4 brothers. There's only one surviving, and he's a Vietnam veteran. His name's Joseph, but they call him Lovell. And my brothers' names were Henry, Ivo, and Treherne. So I'm the youngest of the 12, and now I'm looking after the older ones, whereas they looked after me when I was young. Coming from a large family of 12 children, it was like 3 families in one, because the culture over there was the older ones look after the younger ones. So you had a group of the older children who stuck together, the middle children who stuck together, and the later ones who stuck together, you know. And it was the old saying, little ones seen and not heard. And this sort of thing is really great, because unfortunately the older ones can't remember to pass on the information to the young ones. There was a change of government in Sri Lanka after they got their independence, and they became very nationalistic and introduced a change of law about speaking in English. If you applied for a job, you had to apply in Sinhala, and a lot of the European descendants said they already knew their jobs. Why should they have to learn another language just to do their daily job? So there was a mass migration. The Burghers, as they call the European descendants, there was about 100,000 of them in total, and about 70,000 over the years migrated out. A lot came to Australia, the others went to England and to Canada. But it was pretty hard because the government wouldn't let you take any of your assets out of the country, and my father arrived here with £150 in his pocket. And my great-great-grandfather came from Holland. He was a surgeon. And the funny thing was, he named his son with the same name. He was also a doctor and surgeon. And the Sri Lankans thought what a marvellous man he was, because he used to travel up and down the country and he'd live for over 100 years and still be doing surgeon, not knowing it was 2 different blokes. And there's a family grave which I managed to take my family to. It's a grave plot with 16 people in it. And my eldest daughter and Kate's youngest daughter stood on that grave, and I said to my daughter, "You're putting your hand on the gravestone of your great-great-great-grandfather. He was a surgeon, and now you're keeping the tradition growing by being a specialist nurse in Australia."
Who's that?
Rachel. an amazing thing, I was very proud. I managed to go with my family and take our youngest daughter Kate and her family, and my eldest daughter Rachel, Ashley too, and Rachel. They all went to Sri Lanka just before the year before the bombings, and we were very lucky. We were blessed. The church we went to in Nugara was blown up. The hotel we were staying at was blown up, but that was a year before. The year after we were there, and they got to see our family home in Anuradhapura, and also appreciate some of the culture. What amazes me with doing my family history, I was very fortunate that my eldest brother did the family tree on both sides, and we also doubly fortunate because the Dutch, especially in Sri Lanka, when the European migrants arrived, to prevent interbreeding. The Dutch recorded everyone's marriages, births, christenings, weddings, and it's called the Dutch Burger Union. It goes back to the 17th century, and it's like a Bible. So it tells you all the burgers, basically, that are European descendants in Sri Lanka. When we left Sri Lanka, it was in the night time, and my mother took us all up on the deck and said, have a look at your homeland, because you'll probably never see it again. But we've been very fortunate to be able to go back and twice, and yeah. Yes, I did. I had a little British submarine which had wheels on it. Very unusual, but my father used to make wooden toys for the kids. So I had a little car made from wood. Well, most of that was, I was only 5 when I came to Australia, but we lived in a place called Avondale Heights, and that was mainly semi-rural at the time. It was a new estate, and we were close to the Maribyrnong River, so we had a sheepdog as a pet, and we used to spend the whole day down the river in those days, and we'd have go swimming in the river, and you could buy biscuits, broken biscuits from the milk bar for 2 bob, and you take a lemon to suck on, and you'd be gone all day. But the trouble was the dog used to swim in the river and got mud on it, and we'd get in hiding from our elder brothers for going down playing near the river. We made our own fun. We had billy carts, and we used to take, in those days it was, you could carry a machete, and we'd cut the prickles down, the good old Scotch prickles, and we'd swim in the river. I nearly drowned. I was rescued by a young girl, and so I've got a bit of aversion to swimming because I've drowned nearly 3 times in my life. And yeah, so we'd spend the whole day down there and not getting in any trouble. We never hurt anyone. We didn't receive an allowance, and it was a thrill just to buy a pie once a fortnight for a shilling back in those days. But I did a paper round, and on a bike. It's about 6 kilometres in distance, and it was pretty hard going in winter. Yeah, dirt roads, mud clog up to mud guards. Yeah, and there was I got accused of not putting the paper in a particular house, and one day I had to unclog my mud guards, and the Labrador from across the road came and took the paper from the house across the street, took it to his house. So there was the culprit, which I was getting blamed for. Yes, at school, I took a dare and dropped a kid's shoe out the bus window, and got suspended. But luckily, someone handed the shoe in, and I managed to take it back to the school and give it back to the kid who owned it. But yeah, But the kid who I took the shoe off, he got into more trouble from all these peers for dobbing. My best friend was in accounting. He was poking me in the back with a ruler, and I wrote a little note to him to stop. Dean Reynolds, and I told him in not a nice word, stop it. And the teacher caught the note, made me stay back after school, and he said, we don't need this sort of language in the school. Picked me up, he was a big guy, he picked me up and threw me against the blackboard. And after that, I didn't have very much of a love for accounting. I attended Maribyrnong High. I started off in Brunswick at a little Catholic school. They're all called St. Mary's. And it was funny because they start off the day by saying a prayer. And when I started saying the prayer, the entire class went quiet, and I was the only one saying the prayer. And I looked around, and the teacher was dumbfounded because they said, oh, they told us you couldn't speak English because you're from Sri Lanka. They'd never seen an Asian kid. And so, yeah, it's different. And then I went to St. Margaret's in Maribyrnong, and from there I went to St. Mary's in Ascot Vale for my primary school years, and then secondary school in Avondale, in Maidstone, Maribyrnong High. It's now a sports school. But we used to pack kids on a bus, and we counted them, 113 kids on one bus, and it used to cost you a zack, that's 6 cents, right, 5 cents. And we were going home one day, and the bus brakes failed near the river, so the driver drove it into the lamp pole. But you know what? We, instead of thanking him for saving our lives, we were crook on him because we had to walk the rest of the way home in the heat, and he wouldn't give us our zack back so we could get an ice cream. Geography, history. I always thought I'd end up being a teacher of those subjects. I love those particular subjects, to travel and also to learn about civilizations and learn from others. And I also like sport. I've done a multitude of different sports. And I was very fortunate that my peer students and friends taught me to play Australian rules football. And I kicked the first goal in the club's history, and it's on the web, in that first team, for Avondale Heights Football Club. And no one can ever take that off me. I'm very proud to say I've retained a friend from grade 1, the first Australian friend that I made. His name is Carl Pringle, and I went through primary school and secondary school with him, and now 60 years later he's still my friend, and we have movie nights and we share common interests like military history. Yeah, so I represented this Maribyrnong High in the head of the river on the Yarra, and after it was over, the teacher said, would you like to row the boat back to the Footscray rowing sheds, which is up the Maribyrnong River? Now, I can't swim. The boat is a racing boat, not very high off the water. We ended up on the main shipping channel in Hobson's Bay, and we nearly sunk, but luckily one of the boys said, quick, turn the boat sideways because the wave will swamp us, because it was a big ship. And that was quite frightening in the middle of we got lost, went up the wrong creek. Oh yeah, paddling, and it took us hours. Can you imagine letting 4 kids row a boat, getting towards dark, up an 8k row, and no life vest, no nothing. At first, but we rented a little room in Avondale Heights, and the lounge room was spectacular. It was about 9 foot long and about 5 foot wide. So we were up with the big time with the TV, up close and personal. and we bought our first house in Keilor, and we're still residing there 48 years later. I would have liked to have joined the military, and I actually attended Duntree Military Academy as a cadet program to have a look with the school, but they were pretty harsh, and we were off the lower socio-economic order back in those days, and if you failed to pass, you had to repay the government thousands of dollars, and I couldn't risk that for my parents. There was a Catholic youth club run at Avondale Heights, and I was with a group of friends, and as usual there was nothing much to do, so we went around the school and we could see Julie taking reading lessons for the young kids, and those days they had mini skirts, and she was sitting on a desk, and we were quite interested in all of this, and but we got caught by the priest, and he said, "What are you boys up to?" And he said, "Don't stand out here, just come inside." So that's when I went in, and I met my snobby little friend here, you know, and she was a new person in town, and we walked home that night, and yeah, it grew from there. And now, 60 years later of marriage.
50, Dave.
60? 50. 50. Feels like 60. She was a nice person. And she had a good sense of humour, and she was, I don't know, just came to muck around with the boys and go out, you know. There wasn't much to do in Avondale Heights in those days, so just and to introduce us to her family, and that was a cultural event because her family had never seen a dark person before, and there was a few question marks there, but then her mother found out I was Catholic, and then I was made to feel welcome. And I always remember her auntie saying, "Do you drink tea?" "No, you got to mind, I come from Sri Lanka, or Ceylon as it was known, which is the homegrown tea place, and I'm being asked, do I drink tea?" Yeah, I said, and not only that, I eat pies and play football. So I got on well with her brothers. She's a good listener, she's very kind, she's a great cook, and she cares for other people, and her kids especially, in the family. And she goes out of her way to help people. And she's funny. She even puts up with my dad jokes. And yeah, and I suppose the fact that she puts up with a lot without saying, like, if she's suffering pain from something, she's like her family, like her brothers and sisters, just farmer's attitude. Just keep going. Yeah. Well, Julie says to me, she proposed to me, and she denies that, but we were in Flagstaff Gardens, Treasury Gardens, and she said it's a leap year and I'm allowed to propose to you. So she did. And, you know, we were only young. She was... When we got married, I had to sign to take care of her. Back in those days, that was the law, because she was underage. Yeah, but it was underage, and I had to sign a document to say I would look after her, which was all. But we were both kids at the time, you know, and that's, I think, one of the things that have kept us going, because if you treat her as a girlfriend, not as a wife, you have to challenge it every day and not take it for granted. My friends tell me Julie's the best thing that's happened to me in my life, and she's a gem, and I'm very lucky to have her. And I have to agree, she's put up with a lot, but a sense of humour, and it's more than dad jokes. Just who would imagine a woman that puts up going to war museums and railway museums? I come from a railway family, but we use that as an excuse to travel on trains around the globe. And but she doesn't complain, and now she's started to take a strong interest in the old historic trains and things.
Shirley, tell me a little bit about this guy.
He's very caring and honest, hard-working, and he'd do anything for his children and grandkids and me. And he loves the Melbourne Football Club.
Yeah. Long time between drinks there.
We have travelled interstate for football, and it's just fun to be with. We thoroughly enjoy each other's company when we're on holidays, even though he may do one thing and I'll go off and do my own thing, but we meet up and then have a good time in different country towns.
I can't understand. I invited to political meetings with the Labor Party, to football drink-ups, to boxing events. And she's not interested. I don't understand.
I wonder why. Anyway, David's a treasure, and I've been married to him for 50 years, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you.
First job was a paper boy. I also worked in the meat works. I did roof tiling, and when I worked at the meat works, I raised enough money to buy a racing bike with chrome spokes. It was the first racing bike in the whole suburb. And I raced with Footscray Racing Club, and we had a bad accident, and so I played football with Avondale Heights, and then I was assaulted at school. I said, no one's ever going to do that to me again. So I took up boxing, and it's a much safer sport than football, because at least you know where they're coming from. But you meet a lot of friends. It teaches you a lot. It's life's equaliser. You learn from your friends to bond together better, handle situations, and I think that teaches a lot for people who want to get on in a working environment, especially when it's team orientated. We've been so lucky with our children. Rachel is the oldest, Sharon the middle one, and Kate the youngest. They all married good men. Rachel's married to Lee, Sharon married James, and Kate married Ashley. And we've got 7 grandchildren, 2 boys. The oldest one is Trent. The youngest one is Luke. And then we've got Rachel's oldest is of course Trent, and a daughter named Amy. And Sharon's got 2 daughters named Ella is the oldest one, and she'll be 18, and Isla, 14, and they're all, and Kate and Ashley's children, Ruby's the eldest, and then you've got Kyra, the middle daughter, and now Luke, the youngest little boy. So we're very happy that they're all in good health, and the older ones are doing well at school. But you do worry them as a parent with climate change. But there are good people in the world trying their best to give them a future. It's not just about money. And I said I've got hundreds of sons for all the boys that I've taught over the ages. We went to... I don't want to... Sorry, I don't want to be...
Not a problem whatsoever.
I listen to other people, not about me. life's not about me. We went to Machu Picchu. I met a young girl and I told her that the young kids were racing the buses down the mountain in their sandals on stone, and it was doing damage to their hips. And I said they needed shoes. And I said, can the ranger help? And they couldn't. And I spoke to an American Rotary person and they couldn't help. They said, no, that's their culture. But I said, I left my address with this girl I met in the shop for 10 minutes. She was only a young girl. I didn't realise how young at that time. And when we got back to Australia, I got a letter from her. And she could write English very well, but she couldn't speak. And I said, if you could help me get shoes for those kids, I'll help you. I didn't realise at the time, it was like asking someone, a young girl in Melbourne, to travel all the way to Wodonga, stay there over the weekend, measure these kids' shoes up, feet up, and we send the money over. So I raised money from work and friends and family and bought them the shoes. Well, I paid for that girl to go to university, and then I paid for her wedding. And to do that, I cleaned toilets at the local footy club. And I paid for her wedding, and she named her first child after me. So there's a little David in Peru. She's got a family of her own, and she's graduated from uni. She's an accountant, and she married a really nice guy. They're Indigenous people, and he's an engineer in IT, and he's working for a big firm now in Canada. So their whole life has changed. We've been very, very fortunate. We've spent the kids' inheritance. You listening, kids? And we've travelled to all the continents in the world, and we've had exciting adventures. And people ask us which was the best. You can't. What's the difference between an apple and an orange? Going to Botswana and seeing the animals there, just like in Jurassic Park, to going on a cruise off the Alaskan Inside Passage, to going to South America, where our youngest daughter Kate, went as a Rotary student, and seeing how friendly the people were, and having a bottle of beer for $1.50, and then you get the money back on the bottle. You know, it's just fantastic memories. And taking a rail journey from Seattle down the west coast, down the bottom across New Orleans, and then up the east coast, and then up in Niagara Falls, to go to the Asian countries like Thailand and Bangkok, you know. And that's one of our. We went to Hellfire Pass, where the Australians suffered, including the other allies and the Thai people as well, when they built the railway there, and you realise how much the hardship. And that's one of my heroes, and the doctor there. And I took my silver medal from my boxing career, and I unfortunately didn't get to go with my school friends to Vietnam. My marble fell either side, and when we went to Thailand, I buried my medal underneath the war memorial in Hellfire Pass on the railway line. Because to me that's something small which meant a lot to me, to acknowledge their bravery. We took a bus tour for 23 days around Europe, which took us highlights from Holland, Belgium, Germany, Austria, Italy, Spain, France, and then we drove ourselves in England and Ireland, Scotland, you know. So we've seen a lot and done a lot. We love New Orleans. We were very fortunate. When you travel, you get the good and the bad. Our train got held up and we got in New Orleans 2 o'clock in the morning, thanks to Bill Gates. He'd booked everything and all the surrounding areas, so we're going to sleep at the station. Mary and Joseph we were. Luckily there was a cancellation at an old army hospital, which was supposed to be haunted, but we didn't care, and we stayed there. And New Orleans was a very romantic city in its own way, and to sit there on the corner of 3 or 4 streets and listen to the jazz bands playing, they do when the Saints come marching in, just wonderful. Red and blue, actually, and that's my footy team. But my family have a go at me for wearing red jumpers all the time. So, and I have a red car, but there's a reason for that. It's for safety. Curry. It used to be crab curry, but then I saw how they treat crabs. They tie them up, so I've gone off eating that. I've even gone off eating ham. So,
curry.
What kind of rice and curry, meat curries. Julie's a very good cook. She's an excellent cook. My mother taught her, and she can make curry just as well as any Sri Lankans. Oh, there's a lot of Irish songs that I like. Depends on the occasion, you know. It's Tennessee Waltz. And the English song with the boy that's buried. You know, he's buried in the field, and he says, "Come back and see me." I finally learned to appreciate opera, and and what I find amazing is to hear a Norwegian opera singer singing one of my favourite songs, Shendoa, and she's Norwegian, and that was taught to her by a fisherman from Canada. We were a very multicultural school at Maribyrnong High, but it was a badge of honour to have a nickname, and they used to call me Budge because I used to talk a lot, right? But when we played football, the opposition didn't know who was who, because they didn't have names. They were all animal names, you see. So it caused a lot of confusion for the opposition. We had dog, crow, elephant, pig, yeah. But it was okay for your peers to call you those names, but not for outsiders. People say I'm a fuddy-duddy because I listen to corny Irish music, and the ladies at work said I'm a bit of a romantic because I'm an idealist. I hold in great esteem people like John Kennedy, Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther, and I take a lot from people who have to face adversity, like handicapped people, and they attain great things, and even simple people that achieve against the odds, just the ability to survive. And I take pride in their achievements, and if I can help them, I'd like to do little projects. And there's a burger man who's in his 80s, but he's very sharp. And he worked with and grew up with my elder brothers and sisters named Victor Melder. And he's got a global network of burgers who migrate around the globe. And he sends me history about Sri Lanka, anything from how 2,000 years ago they built this or that, to how to make a love cake. And he sent me a charity to help, which was approved by the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka, so he knew its rigidity. And it was an old people's home for women who didn't have any support, or families mainly, and it was run by a Catholic nun in a place I've never been to. So I struck up a friendship with her, and I sent money from when I worked at the football club, and it multiplies by over 250 when it gets there, and it feeds them. And I said to Julie, come and have a look at this. It's been a few years now, but you could see the smiles on the faces of the people in the home. And she's now moved to another village, Nugara in Sri Lanka, and she looks after the poverty-stricken in that area. So that's our next little project, and because the money goes straight to the horse's mouth, it doesn't go where it can be sent to somewhere else.
And Rachel's doing it as well.
And my daughter's also interested in, they've also contributed. So that feeling of care, yes, but not to the extent that I'm blind. I like to believe my mother, teachings of what my mother taught me, and my eldest sister. They were very kind and tolerant, and they used to say, if you haven't got anything bad to say about someone, anything good to say about someone, don't say it at all. So I've tried to model myself on them, and I try to go to Mass when I can, but I don't go over the top. And I'm also tolerant for other religions. You know, if people want to worship, that's their prerogative, you know, and you just try and support them. And I get a bit upset about some religions that cast fake news, as they call it, about Catholic religion. The earliest memory would have been as a child in Sri Lanka, and a cobra was going to get me in the backyard, and my uncle had to shoot it, and that always stuck in my mind. Seeing other people laughing, and I like even watching animal videos where they do funny things, and they, from despair, an elephant trapped in a hole, the local villagers lifting it out, you know, and family, and just seeing them grow and do things, seeing kids that I've taught become better people. But take each day as it comes. The gymnasium where I've been teaching, I'm doing boxing for 50 years, recently got flooded, and I've been raising money to try and get it back on its feet. And that's a big job in itself. But my administrative training as a public servant for more than 50 years is coming in handy. Yes, I do have some regrets in life, not doing certain things that I should have done better. Sometimes I feel a failure that I could have helped more people, but because I was very shy when I was young, you speak and not be, and I should have pushed myself, step forward more so, and tried other things in life. And I have a host of ideas which I'd like to formulate, that people tend to laugh at my ideas, but the fact of not having the money or the ability to draw or have the resources to achieve those results is quite frustrating to my mind. So now I get satisfaction by seeing the people that I have been able to help, all the people I've trained over the years, and trying to help my family, but I give them, especially the kids, their own space to develop their own lives and not try to be a a father-in-law that's impacting on their space. So we've been very fortunate that all their husbands are quite educated, and they have taken care of them and the kids. Well, there's an old saying, you shall only pass this way but once. Let any good that I shall do, let me do it now. So there's a lot of things on my bucket list that I'd like to do to help others, and I've got a few projects, including fixing up a historic cemetery at Eganstown, just outside of Dalesford, where most of my wife's family are buried, and there's a lot of early Irish settlers and their families buried there, and they have no markers. So there's a lot of little things we can do by working with others. Just be kind to animals. Well, they can't speak for themselves, and there has to be a voice for them, you know. And there's no need for a lot of the injustices. I like live exports. There's no need for it. Buy them fridges. You know, other countries can do it. New Zealand. Within your capabilities, try and help others attain better lives. Because, as I said, you know, and you listen and learn from other great giants. If you can sit on the shoulders of other giants, you can do more. And I used to think, gee, I got involved with the Sea Shepherd Foundation, and I thought, what can I do? I'm just one small person, but there are thousands of people in the globe and here, and if they band together like Oxfam, you can help others. And you know, I don't know, with the skills that you've got, try and attain as much as you can, and be supportive of your family and your friends, and you can have many acquaintances, but you can only have some good friends. You can count them on one hand.